All right, welcome back to the TCI studio. We're going casual today. Got the T-shirt on, national championship. Don't see any Gamecock reporters going around wearing these. Just a little tease there. All right, Will, welcome back to TCI studio. Hopefully you guys aren't getting tired of seeing these ugly mugs often. We're trying to mix it up a little bit and give you not just us all the time, but we're also trying to give you guys as much coverage as we can here from the studio, something we've got that we want to make more use of. All right, Will, we're going to do a recap today. Yesterday we got Tony Elliott after practice for the first time in forever. Going back to, I think you said, to the ACC championship, after the ACC championship game.
Yep.
Which I believe was the last time we heard from him. So he had a lot to talk about. I guess first thing out of the chute, first question for him was, what was the whole Sugar Bowl experience like for him?
Yeah, it was a roller coaster is really more the way he described it. So he's walking off the practice field one day and he gets summoned over by the training staff, and he thought it was for an update on an injured player or something of that nature. And they inform him that he had tested positive for COVID-19 and that he was going to have to be immediately quarantined and all that. And so he said that really got to him. It upset him a little bit, not only because he's got COVID-19, but because they're preparing for the biggest game of the year at the time, and he's not going to be able to be there. And so he said that took a little bit to come up from. He did eventually. He said he got used to it. They did the Zoom stuff, and he said, they got the team prepared, and he felt real good at that point about where the team was and all that stuff. And then he said, as they got in the Sugar Bowl and the team started to struggle, that hit him again, that he wished he was there, because he felt like if he was there, he could get them out of that slump they were in. He could figure something out to get them out of it. Being at home, as you know, coaches can't communicate with the team at all, so he was helpless. He was just like us fans watching the game.
Well, and I'm not sure they did have him prepared. And as we know, Tony wasn't the only one missing from that booth.
That's right. Cam Aiken, who's now down at South Florida, a big part of their offensive game planning, he was also out with COVID-19, and he's a guy who really helps Tony a lot, not only during the week leading up to games and breaking down film and stuff, but also was a guy that helped Tony see things on game day. And so both those guys are missing. Your two brain trusts, if you will, up in the press box were missing. And that, as you said, that really kind of hurt them.
All right. So we went from that to the next big topic, I thought, was obviously him talking about the Tennessee job and the flirtation there, and how that went, and what's he going to be looking for in the future.
Yeah, he talked about how the reason it came down to why he didn't take the job was it just didn't still seem right for him. And right now he's got two young kids, two young sons, and he wants to make sure where he goes that they can go and fit in just as well as he's fitting in as a coach. So obviously that means school, the community, things of that nature, things we don't even think of as regular people.
Well, he wants them to fit in for the long term. He doesn't want to do job hopping. He wants to find a place where they can come, as you said, be part of the community, go all in with the community for the long term.
Exactly, and that's really important to him. So when he goes for jobs and he looks at these different jobs, as we know, he's been courted by a lot of schools the last several years. That's what he's looking for, and Tennessee just wasn't there yet. And then,
if you're thinking long term in Tennessee, those things don't go together.
They don't go hand in hand. They do not. So obviously, I think he's going to get a little more looks at as he goes on. If Clemson keeps doing what they're going to do offensively, and we think this year they got a chance to be every bit as good or better than the last couple of years. You'd imagine he's going to get more looks again, and somebody else is going to come along, and eventually somebody's probably going to take him. Now, remember, with Tony, it's not just college football for him. He's a guy that in the NFL, he's so smart. I hear people tell me this all the time, and you read and see it also. He's so smart as a football guy. The NFL coaches love him, and NFL GMs love him, and they love talking to him. When they come to Clemson, you see when they have these pro days, these GMs and stuff come, and if you pay attention, if you're watching the ESPN's broadcast stuff, look who Tony's talking to. He's always talking to these NFL coaches and GMs and stuff.
But they're
talking shop.
That doesn't fit the long-term, all-in community thing, right? Because if you take an NFL job, how sure are you that you're going to be there for the long term?
That's a good question. It's a good point. But I'm not saying Tony's
No, I
going to
know
go.
they love him, but
yeah, they love him. I don't know if Tony loves
that he
them.
will ever make that move.
Right, that's right. I don't know if he'll make the move or not, but they love Tony.
Yep.
And so it gives you an idea of what the coaches around the country think of Tony Elliott and how much they think of him as a brain trust in the game of football, because he's not like any other person. And remember, this is a guy who was an engineer and had a good high-paying job, and when he left to go coach college football, Michelin didn't want to lose him. They tried to keep him.
No, he's brilliant.
He's brilliant.
And we saw what happened when he wasn't there, unfortunately. All right, another topic yesterday was, his transition to tight end job, and he gave a whole lot of respect to C.J. Spiller. One of the things he talked about was how similar the things were. He felt like he was almost paying it back, because when he took his coaching job at Furman, another coach that was already on the staff agreed to switch to the running back coach so that Tony could come in and coach what he knew as wide receiver. So now he feels like he's paying that back, where CJ's coming in. Obviously, CJ knows running back a lot better than Tony, even though Tony's coached it for 10 years. But he agreed to make that move, and he talked a little bit about that transition to tight end.
Yeah, he did, and he said that it's new for him. He's learning it. He says he understands the wide receiver aspect of a tight end going to catch, because that's very similar to what he knows. The part he's learning is the blocking scheme and all that. And he says he's really been talking to Robbie Caldwell a lot. He says Robbie's kind of been giving him pointers of this, and this is what they do and why they do it. And so he's kind of learning that. So he's like, I'm sitting there like with my young guys, and I'm kind of learning like they're learning, on what they're doing there. So it's kind of a different fit for him. But as Dabo said the other day, Tony's a guy that could go coach any position, because, again, go back to his football knowledge. He just has such a high football IQ. It's easy for him to understand. But this, again, is another area that I think is going to make Tony a better overall coach. And like I said before, now Clemson with tight ends, with Tony Elliott calling the plays and understanding the position more, I think you're going to see the tight end be a big piece of this offense in the coming years.
The throwing, tight end, catching, where his focus is, because that's what he knows. I think Clemson fans love thinking about that possibility in the future. Speaking of tight ends, Jake, one of the freshmen, got a lot of accolades from Tony yesterday. Talk a little bit about what Tony said about the freshman tight end.
It just likes the way he's kind of come in ready, if you will. I mean, you got to remember, when a guy comes in for the spring, they're trying to just kind of slowly bring it to him, where in the summer, everything's going faster. And so, but he's come in and like, they're really impressed that he's kind of like football ready, if you will. And that he's, made some plays yesterday. They had like a sort of a small situational scrimmage, if you will, where the coaches got off the field and they just let the guys go good on good and things of that nature. And he really showed out and made some plays and looked impressive. Now, is he gonna jump the two guys, Braden Galloway and Davis Allen? We don't know. Those guys know so much and they know the offense. Those are two dynamic players themselves. But just imagine, Robert, if you have three dynamic tight ends and you can go to either one of them, whether they're coming off the line or whether they're lined up in the slot to make plays, that's what you get. And so now you got a third guy who can possibly come in and be a weapon for you also.
Another guy we got to talk to yesterday was Walker Parks. Obviously, folks are looking at him to take one of those tackle spots with Jackson moving on to the NFL, which I think is a mistake, by the way. But I think Parks will actually probably end up being an upgrade there. But I loved his attitude yesterday. He was like, I got so much to learn, because he did really well last year as a freshman.
Absolutely.
But he's very humble. He's like, oh no, I've got to learn here and improve there. And the thing that I liked the most was just he was so mad about what happened in that Sugar Bowl. He was angry about the outcome there, and I just kind of liked that fight that I heard from him.
Yeah, there's a reason why the coaches call him nasty and say he has a mean streak to him. That's important in offensive linemen. They don't like getting pushed around like that, and let's just be honest, let's call it what it is. They got humiliated by Ohio State's defensive front in that game. And it sort of was a wake-up call for him. And yeah, so he kind of expressed how embarrassed they were of the lack of physicality that they had in that game, how they just got run over and they couldn't run the football. And it was something that not only, as he said in a story Gavin did on our website, not just him, but everybody on the offensive line was PO'd. They were just really extremely mad with their performance for the entire season, not just the bowl game. And that really kind of resonated with me too, because it was the entire season. It didn't make excuses, owned it, says we can't be like that, we're better than that. That's what you said, is impressive about him, because he's a sophomore and he's coming out there and he's like already showing some leadership, saying this is unacceptable as an offensive line.
All right, that's a little bit of what we heard yesterday. Obviously, you've read a lot of it already, and we got more headed your way. A lot more coverage of spring practice headed your way. On Friday, we actually, weather permitting, we finally get Bart out there and unleash his great photography. So look for some great galleries headed your way this weekend. Stay tuned to the Clemson Insider for the most complete coverage of Clemson athletics and recruiting.